Welcome into the program. You're listening to the College Football Bowl Game Preview Special presented by Donnelly Timmons and Associates. When it comes to your custom construction project, you want a builder that you can depend on, and you need them to execute your plan with superior results. That's Donnelly Timmons. Don't forget about them. You can contact them at 615-456-7983. That's 615-456-7983, or visit them on the web at DonnellyTimmons.com. It's a wonderful Sunday morning here in Nashville, Tennessee. We're on the campus of Father Ryan High School, and my name is Billy Derrick, alongside Charlie Sheridan to my left and Donnelly Wolf to my right, and we have Stephen Wilson also over there. Charlie, how you doing this morning?
I'm doing very well, Billy. I'm happy to be here. We have a lot of good bowl games to talk about, and let's get right on to it.
Donnelly, definitely glad to have you here with us.
Oh, yeah, it's a treasure for me. Really excited to be with you guys.
Stephen, how you doing?
Doing good. Pleasure to be here.
All right, guys, this is a great experience here, and this is the first time we've done a live video stream for the College Football Kickoff Show, and we are extremely excited. Guests on the show today, coming up here in about 15 minutes or so, we're going to be joined by Steve Lassan, college football writer from athlonsports.com. Always good to be joined by Steve. And then at 9:45, we'll have Chris Lowe from ESPN.com on the show. He's a college football columnist. And then at 10:15 a.m., hopefully, we've sent Clay Travis an email, so hopefully he will be joining us at 10:15. He's a college football analyst for Fox Sports 1. So, guys, let's go ahead and I'm going to run through the scores here from yesterday just to get people informed on them. The San Jose State versus Georgia State game, we'll start off with that when it was the Cure Bowl. San Jose State got the win 27-17. And then in the Gildan, New Mexico Bowl, Arizona with the win over New Mexico. That was a high-scoring game, 45-37 in Albuquerque. And then arguably a top 15 bowl game was yesterday in the afternoon. It was the Royal Purple Las Vegas Bowl between Utah and BYU. Utah got the win 35-28 in Las Vegas. And then the Raycom Media Camellia Bowl, Ohio and Appalachian State. We saw that big one. Appalachian State got the win 31-29. And then in the R&L Carriers New Orleans Bowl, Louisiana Tech defeated Arkansas State 47-28. All right, let's go ahead and try to touch on some of the games here we've got coming up. We are absolutely loaded with holiday bowl game action throughout, in the future, but we were loaded with games yesterday. The action begins to pick up tomorrow, and we have 7 bowls before Christmas, and we have the postseason slate concludes in Glendale, Arizona on January 11th with the national championship. So, guys, let's go ahead and start here with the small bowls. We got tomorrow, actually, at 1:30 at Marlins Park down in Miami. It's the Miami Beach Bowl, Western Kentucky versus South Florida. We all saw last season's Miami Beach Bowl. It was one of the better postseason games. I mean, it was really exciting, high scoring. So Brandon Doughty is the player to watch here in this one. Defending Brandon Doughty will be a challenge. And South Florida, they can use their rushing attack to keep Western Kentucky's high-powered offense on the side. Donnelly, what's your take on this one?
Well, to me, looking at the beginning of the season, South Florida started off with the coach, almost Willie Taggart, being on the hot seat. They lost, I believe it was 6 in a row, if I'm not mistaken. So, really good for them to bounce back and get into this bowl.
Charlie?
Yeah, Brandon Doughty, he's a really good quarterback. They have a really good offense. We remember them playing Vandy. And the rushing attack for the Bulls is really something special. It'll be a very intriguing matchup tomorrow.
Stephen?
Remember, South Florida's coach, Willie Taggart's getting a chance to play his alma mater, but Brandon Doughty's going to be the key to this game. I got Western winning.
All right, so there you have it. That's the Miami Beach Bowl. Once again, that is tomorrow afternoon, 1:30 on ESPN in Miami, Florida. And then coming up on Tuesday afternoon at 2:30, we have the famous Idaho Potato Bowl. Really, the team to watch in this one is Utah State, because a team we saw last year, we all thought they were going to be a solid team. Their quarterback, Chucky Keaton, has struggled with injuries this year. Points could be at a premium on the blue turf when the Zips and the Aggies meet on Tuesday. Akron's defense ranks second in the MAC by holding opponents to 21.5 points per game, and this is just Akron's second bowl appearance in program history. Donnelly, that means they're going to be fired up for this one.
And Akron's head coach, Terry Bowden, the son of Bobby Bowden, so they're going to be ready to go.
Mm-hmm. Yep, Charlie?
Yeah, this is going to be an offense of Utah State versus the defense of Akron. I'm really excited to see that matchup, but I have Utah State in this one with Chucky Keaton and Kent Myers both having really good games tomorrow.
when you have two quarterbacks, it easily sets up a quarterback controversy. You don't know which quarterback you're going to use. A little bit of you're not sure what you're going to do. I have Akron winning.
All right, and then also on this coming up this Tuesday night, we have the Marmo Boca Raton Bowl down in Boca Raton, Florida, at FAU Stadium. It's two really good teams this year. You know, they were in the top 25. Toledo taking on Temple. Just like it was last season, the Boca Raton Bowl should be one of the better pre-Christmas matchups on the postseason slate. There's a lot of talent in this one. This Temple team was expected to, do big things this year. Toledo is a team that's on the rise. The Temple Owls, they ranked second in the AAC conference against the run and first in fewest yards allowed per play. Donnelly, this is a really good pre-Christmas matchup.
And it is, but when you look at it, Matt Campbell, who just left Toledo to join the Iowa State for their head coaching job, I think Toledo's just not going to have enough in them.
Yep, Charlie?
I really like Ely, the quarterback for Toledo. He's had a really good season all year, and I think Toledo, even though Temple, their middle linebacker Markevich is a really good player, I still think Toledo's offense is going to get it done.
I look at Temple this year. I look at their two losses. They had the really close game at home to Notre Dame, and then the AAC championship against Houston. And a Houston team that blew out Navy, they only lost by 9 points, and they got great defense. I got Temple winning.
Yeah, this should be truly an exciting game to watch. I can't wait to watch it. And then this Wednesday afternoon, we have the San Diego County Credit Union Poinsettia Bowl. It's Boise State and Northern Illinois in San Diego, where the Chargers play. That game kicks off at 3:30. You can watch it on ESPN. Both teams, Boise State and Northern Illinois, have been two of the top group of 5 programs and meet for the first time on the gridiron this Wednesday afternoon in San Diego. Boise State, Northern Illinois, Donnelly, these are two teams who, traditionally really good offenses and not as high-powered this year, but they have been recently.
Yeah, both teams are pretty down in the last couple of years, but I still think Boise State's just got a little more than Northern Illinois has.
Charlie?
Yeah, and I agree. I think Boise State will get it done against Northern Illinois. Northern Illinois, they aren't having as good of a year as they had last year when they had Lynch, and I think Boise State will get it done.
I agree. Boise State will take care of business.
All right, and then we have at 7 p.m. this Wednesday night, Go Daddy Bowl. Georgia Southern taking on Bowling Green, Mobile, Alabama at Ladd-Peebles Stadium. Bowling Green's offense was very explosive. Charlie knows that. His Tennessee Vols had a little bit of trouble with them. They averaged 43 points per game this season, and whenever a team averages 43 points, they're going to be ready to play. Charlie, I want to start with you on this one. What did you see from Bowling Green that first game? I know it was the first game of the year, but they can really play football.
I was really surprised at how well their offense was. I thought we were going to take care of business, but we really didn't. Matt Johnson threw for 400 yards. I think Bowling Green will get it done against Georgia Southern.
Donnelly?
I think the same thing. Bowling Green, they did just lose their coach, but just watching what they did against UT, I think Bowling Green's going to have it in the bag.
Yep.
Bowling Green.
All right, and then let's see here. We've got two more games to preview here. We got the Popeyes Bahamas Bowl starting with Christmas Eve now. Middle Tennessee versus Western Michigan down in the Bahamas at Robinson National Stadium. We're going to talk in depth about this one here to close things out. 11 a.m. kickoff. The Blue Raiders, they really do have a dangerous connection on offense with freshman quarterback Brent Stockstill. They have a really good receiver in Richie James. Stockstill, he threw for 3,670 yards and 27 touchdowns this year, and they've got surprisingly a lot of talent at wide receiver. Donnelly, give us your, because we all know your relation with Boots Donnelly, your grandfather. What's the people in Murfreesboro thinking about this one and just sort of actually taking the trip down to the Bahamas?
Well, an interesting note about this game, the Nassau wanted all of the players' equipment down in the Bahamas by December 9th. So middle and both, I believe Western Michigan had the same date that everything had to be shipped down there. They haven't hit pads in almost 2.5 weeks now. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know. I think it's going to be a little sluggy and sloppy off the gate, but middle just got too much firepower on the offensive side.
Yeah, you got to think with that matchup, middle, they were able to move the ball against a lot of good defenses this year. Charlie, what's your take on this one in the Bahamas?
Yeah, Richie James, he's a really good receiver, and Brent Stockstill, he's a good quarterback. He can run it and he can pass it. That's always important. I think Middle Tennessee will take care of business.
Let's remember the Bahamas Bowl last year, which was the shootout and the major comeback. Can we expect something like this time?
I Yeah, I think we can, Steven. It was super exciting last year.
Yeah, Western Kentucky.
Yep.
In Central Michigan.
And Stottstill's got the throwing power to do the same thing that Dowdy
He really
did last
does.
year.
That Vanderbilt game, me and Charlie were there. We saw it firsthand. He was slinging the ball down the middle of that Commodore defense, and it was extremely impressive. Down in the years to come, this middle team is absolutely loaded. All right, guys, coming up next, that does it here for segment number 1. Coming up, we're going to check in with Steve Lassan from Athlon Sports. We'll talk to him about all the bowl games and preview much more. All that and much more coming up next on the College Football Bowl Game Preview Special. All right, welcome back into the program. You're listening to and watching to the College Football Bowl Game Preview Special. And we're before we get to Steve Lassan, I'm going to touch on a couple headlines here throughout the past couple of weeks. And we all know the situation, that fiasco in A&M with Kyle Allen and Kyler Murray. A&M starting quarterback Kyle Allen is transferring out of the program. The school announced last Thursday. Allen, who started 14 games in his Texas A&M career, has been granted his release from the school. In a tweet last Thursday, Kyle Allen, thank you, College Station, and thank you, Texas A&M University. And then also, a few days after that, we see that Kyler Murray is now transferring. So the quarterback for A&M now is Jake Hubenak, as I'm being told by Steven over here. So that's the situation going on with A&M. So that's what we have there. Now we're going to get to Steve Lassan here on the program. Steve, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and thank you for joining us this morning.
Hey guys, it's great to talk to you once again. Happy holidays to you guys, and looking forward to the rest of the bowl season. We have a good start on Saturday, plenty of great games still coming up.
Yeah, Steve, I want to start things off with here in the SEC in Knoxville. My question to you is, will Northwestern's run game show up against the Vols? Because that's really what everyone's been talking about here. There's been a lot of talk with Northwestern. Their offense is kind of depleted, but they know how to run the ball. Do you think this Big Ten, I mean, they're number 13 team in the country. Do you think a team like Northwestern will be able to do what they want against Tennessee?
I think it's hard to see Northwestern being able to just run the ball on Tennessee, and I think Northwestern is going to need more from their passing game. You know, it struggled all season. They started a redshirt freshman at quarterback in Clayton Thorson, and it's been kind of, as you expect, some growing pains, and they had some question marks at receiver too. In Tennessee last year, it's hard to read too much into bowl games from year to year, but Tennessee looked well prepared, had a good showing in last year's win over Iowa. I suspect we'll see the same thing. I think Northwestern defensively, one of the better groups in the Big Ten. They can hang around in this game. I think Tennessee just has too much firepower, too much talent on defense. Unless Northwestern catches a lot of breaks, I think it's going to be tough to see them winning this game.
We're talking with college football writer from Athlon Sports, Steve Lassan. Steve, another intriguing matchup, Notre Dame versus Ohio State in the Battle Frog Fiesta Bowl. How does Notre Dame match up against a very talented Ohio State team?
Yeah, it really doesn't get much better in the bowl season than watching Notre Dame play Ohio State. I mean, these are two of the best brands in college football, and they're matching up in a pretty good game out in the Fiesta Bowl. I think the challenge for Notre Dame is going to be, how do they stop Ezekiel Elliott? You know, that's been the big challenge for everybody when they face Ohio State this year. Because Ohio State's quarterback play, it hasn't been great. It's been up and down. It's been uneven. They went through J.T. Barrett and Cardale Jones. But Ohio State did show some signs of life on offense at the end of the year. They played well against Michigan. Maybe they found something over the bowl practices, too, that they can carry into this game. A great matchup to watch is going to be Notre Dame linebacker Jalen Smith. He was an All-American, one of the best linebackers in college football. Notre Dame really needs him to have a good game. I think what Notre Dame has to do, they have to find a way to slow down Ezekiel Elliott and force Ohio State to pass. And I think for Notre Dame offensively, you know, they managed a lot of key injuries this season. Losing Malik Zaire early in the year, Deshaun Kaiser stepped in, has been very good. I think this could be a game where, you know, motivation factor for Notre Dame is going to be high. They can finish out the year on a high note. Ohio State maybe a little bit disappointed to be in this situation. So either way, I think it's going to be a great game. But keep an eye on Ezekiel Elliott versus Jalen Smith. That's going to be really one of the better individual matchups of the bowl season. And it's probably going to decide whether or not Notre Dame can win this game if they can slow down Ohio State's ground attack.
Another Big Ten SEC game in the Citrus Bowl. Michigan plays Florida. This is an example of SEC speed versus Big Ten power. How well do you think these two teams match up?
It's going to be a defensive struggle. I think you're going to see two teams that are going to play really well in defense, and both of these teams are probably going to struggle to move the ball very much on offense. You know, Florida offensively at the end of the year with the Will Greer suspension, going to Treon Harris, offensive line question marks, it was just a struggle for Florida to put together a complete offensive game. Michigan has a few more established weapons, and they have Jake Rudock, the Iowa transfer at quarterback, so they have a little bit more, I think, going for them on offense. But I think it all goes back to defense. I think both these defenses are going to control the line of scrimmage. I think you'll see a very low-scoring game. At the end of the day, when you're trying to decide between these two teams, I think it goes back to quarterback play and offensive weapons. And that's where I think Michigan has a little bit of an edge right now. So I think low-scoring, Michigan wins. I think it just goes back to the fact that Florida's offense is just struggling too much right now.
Steve, one question for me. Looking at the quarterback situation at Notre Dame for next year, who do you think is going to have the edge going into the preseason?
That's a great question. You know, two two really good quarterbacks, and Brian Kelly has a history of being able to manage quarterback situations. Going back to his time even at Cincinnati, where they had a lot of injuries, a lot of guys that ended up being really good, he was able to manage that well. And I think you have to give Kaiser the edge going into spring. But Malik Zaire was pretty much the perfect fit for what Brian Kelly wanted to an offense. And I think he gives that offense a little bit more of a dynamic quarterback run option. So my guess is that Kaiser starts spring ball as a number one quarterback. But I think eventually Malik Zaire ends up being the starter for Notre Dame next season.
We're talking with college football writer from AthlonSports.com, Steve Lassan. Steve, there are a bunch of teams that have finished under 500, like Nebraska and Minnesota, that are getting the bowls. What does it mean that 5 and 7 teams are now getting into bowl games?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway that I have is that probably college football's postseason is a little bit too big. It's hard to complain about having bowl games in college football on in late December and January because it's great television. As we saw yesterday, even San Jose State at 5 and 7 and Georgia State playing at 6 and 6 ended up being a pretty entertaining game. So I think as a college football fan, I'll never complain about more games. But at the same time, I think there's too many bowl games. I think we could get rid of 5 or 6, maybe even 7, 8, and we could still have a good postseason. There's really no disadvantage to having bowl games and allowing teams to go. But when teams start to get losing records, I think maybe we've reached the breaking point of having too many games.
Also, is there a matchup in your opinion that will be extremely intriguing to you?
I look at the Alamo Bowl between Oregon and TCU as being one of the more exciting and potentially very interesting bowl games, just because both of these teams can score points in a hurry. Oregon and TCU, wouldn't shock me if this game is 45-41 at the end of the game. Oregon was red hot at the end of the regular season. Once Vernon Adams was healthy, the Ducks offense took off. And I think for TCU, a lot of injuries. This was a season that TCU thought they could contend for a playoff spot, but injuries and roster turnover really just derailed their season. But they have time to get Trayvon Boykin healthy. There's a chance they may get Josh Doxson back healthy, the big-time receiver. So TCU's offense could be back at full strength. And in a game against Oregon, it's going to be a high-scoring affair back and forth. So if you like offense, I definitely would check out the Alamo Bowl.
One more question here for you, Steve, before we let you go. Many people believe that this playoff committee got it absolutely right this year. Not many debates or arguments about that. But when you look at it, it's two really good matchups and comparative styles with Alabama and Michigan State. You look at that game, two traditional teams. Not necessarily high powered, but they love to run the ball. Two pretty good running backs there. And then in the Oklahoma and Clemson game, you look at that, you think that's gonna be a shootout type of a game. So in your mind, Steve, what do you see in these two matchups and maybe your pick to win it all here in this year's college football playoff?
I think you're absolutely right on those games. They're very similar style teams. Alabama and Michigan State, defense and running the ball. That's going to be the key to that game. I think Alabama's front seven on defense, especially their defensive line, is the best in college football. And that's the challenge for Michigan State. I don't know that Michigan State can just line up and establish the run like they did against Iowa late in the game against Alabama. That's going to be a huge challenge. What they're going to have to do is they're going to have to allow Connor Cook and Aaron Burbridge, that passing game for Michigan State, to open things up. Even if Michigan State hits on a couple big plays in the passing game, I'm just not sure that's going to be enough. I like Alabama to win that game. The other game between Clemson and Oklahoma, I think you're going to see a high-scoring, back-and-forth game. Both quarterbacks in this game, you can make a case for All-America, Heisman Trophy honors, Baker Mayfield, Deshaun Watson. You look across the field, so many skill, talented players. And the big problem for Clemson at the end of the regular season on defense, they were giving up a lot of big plays. If they can keep those under wraps and keep Oklahoma's offense and make them drive the length of the field, I think Clemson's got a good chance to win. But I just like the way Oklahoma was playing at the end of the regular season. It seemed like everything come together for them. Their defense led the Big 12 in fewest points per game allowed. So I like Oklahoma and I like Alabama, and I'm going to pick Alabama to win the national championship. I think it's going to be tough for teams to slow down Derrick Henry, and with that defense, I just like Alabama to win it all this year.
Hard not to agree with you right there on that one, Steve. Thank you so much. Great stuff as always, Steve. I'll talk to you soon, and Merry Christmas to you and your family.
Absolutely, guys. Talk to you soon. Thanks a lot.
All right, you too. That's college football writer Steve Lassan joining us here on the show. Great stuff from Steve, as always, guys. That was great.
Yeah, that was some good stuff right there from Steve.
All right, coming up next, we're going to preview all the SEC teams in the bowl games. I decided to rank them, so we'll start with the good ones, and as we end the next segment, we'll move on to the bowl games like Birmingham Bowl and the Music City Bowl games like that. So all that and much more coming up next on the College Football Kickoff Show Bowl Special. Welcome back into the program. You're listening and watching to the College Football Kickoff Show Bowl Special. We are happy that you all are able to join us here. We're going to try and touch on two headlines in each segment here. Ohio State with their defensive coordinator leaving. We have former Bucks coach Greg Schiano has been hired in Columbus, Ohio. He has been hired as the defensive coordinator at Ohio State, pending approval from the school's board of trustees. The team confirmed Friday, and then also former Georgia defensive coordinator Jeremy Pruitt has been hired at Alabama. Pruitt spent this season working under Mark Richt, who was dismissed by Florida, obviously, as we all know, earlier this month, and replaced by Alabama defensive coordinator Kirby Smart. Speaking of this, guys, I want to get your guys' take on this. How do you guys think Kirby Smart will do in Athens? Because, you know, he did pretty good as the defensive coordinator in Alabama. So, do you think a coordinator like Kirby Smart, with his experience under Nick Saban, can fare pretty well in the SEC here in the next few years?
He's going to need to get a couple of good coordinators along with him. I know he does a tremendous job with that defense, but he's going to have an offense as well in the SEC. So I'm going to have to see who he can get might bring somebody up in from Alabama, but I'm expecting a really nice offensive coordinator to come with him.
Yeah, and Donnelly, I agree with that. But I think sometimes there are just some guys that are better at coordinators because they don't have to recruit as much and run a team. And I think, unfortunately for Georgia, that's what Kirby Smart falls into. I think he's just a better coordinator than he will be a coach.
I look at the atmosphere that he's walking into because Mark Richt's been there for a while, and he's put a reputation in that school. And how do you go around? You're going to set your own reputation. Do you follow a little bit of what he did, or do you go completely different?
Yeah, that's. I think Kirby Smart. He wanted to get that experience under Nick Saban, and then he was just waiting for that right call from Georgia to sort of build up his own program. And I think he's going to do really well. I think he's going to do a great job. Obviously, Mark Richt. It was just time for him to go. So that's my take on it. And then, so yeah, those are the headlines. Now we're going to start talking about the big ones everyone's waiting for. Starting off with the Cotton Bowl, one of the semifinal games. It's between number 2 Alabama, who's 12-1. They take on number 3 Michigan State, who's also 12-1. They play New Year's Eve, 7 o'clock on ESPN. For everyone else here, this is the game that everyone's looking for. There are a lot of people out there who think this is a big-time mismatch for Michigan State. This is the most physical matchup between two teams in the entire bowl slate, in my opinion. It should be a lot of fun to watch, and it should be a low-scoring, four-quarter affair. So, I think the team with the most efficient quarterback will win the game. If Connor Cook goes out there, plays a really good game, I think he gives Michigan State a really good chance to win. And on the other side, if Jake Coker plays really well, plays good enough, to make the throws, I think Alabama has a good enough chance to win. So I have Alabama in this one. Donnelly, what about you? Who do you have in the Cotton Bowl?
Unfortunately, I'm going to have to go with you as well. Alabama they're too quick off the line. If Michigan State is able to stop Henry, they do have a very good defensive front line, but I just think Alabama's too quick.
Yeah, I'm not going to be the one to pick against Alabama. I just think Coker and Henry are too good, and Ridley's a really good-looking freshman receiver. I think he's going to be Amari Cooper in the future. That's what he's looking like.
I look at Michigan State's rushing defense. They've been really good. 54. They held Iowa to 54. They held Ohio State to 86, although that was a little off the wall with Ezekiel Elliott not getting as much as he wanted. But I don't think that Michigan State will be able to hold Derrick Henry. I got Alabama.
Yeah, I told Steven this, 2 words, Derrick Henry. He's a Heisman winner. I think he's going to be the difference in this Cotton Bowl game. So once again, that game's going to be extremely exciting to watch, and it obviously the winner of that one moves on to play Oklahoma and Clemson. So definitely looking forward to that one. Now moving on to previewing the Sugar Bowl. It's between number 12 Ole Miss, who's looking for their 10th win of the year, as they play number 16 Oklahoma State, a team who was pretty hot all throughout the year. They kind of fizzled away after a couple of losses in the Big 12. They play New Year's night, 7:30 on ESPN. Both these teams, both the Cowboys and the Rebels, average more than 40 points per game. So the defense obviously is the question, though. The Rebels, they gave up 38 to Florida. They gave up 37 to Memphis and 53 to Arkansas. So Ole Miss's defense is definitely reeling here in the past couple of weeks. Oklahoma State is a pretty explosive offense. They have a really good quarterback, J.W. Walsh. They're capable of putting up big numbers, Donnelly. But the question I have for you, will any of these teams play any defense at all?
I think Oklahoma State will show up with a pretty strong defense. Ole Miss did not look like the team that they should be a contender in the playoff. At the beginning of the year, everyone thought they would be. Giving up 53 points to Arkansas, I'll give credit to Arkansas. They've really turned it on the later part of the year. But you can't give up 53 points in the SEC. So Oklahoma State, I'm going to think it's going to be a blowout.
Whenever you're defense in the SEC and you give up 53, Charlie, that's not a good sign.
That's almost Kentucky and Vanderbilt right there.
Yeah, that was brutal.
Yeah, and Billy, here's my question. Are we going to get the Ole Miss that beat Memphis or lost to Memphis or the Ole Miss that beat Alabama? That's my question. They're pretty much two totally different teams sometimes. So they're just too inconsistent for me. That's why I'm going to pick Oklahoma State. They've been consistent all year.
Yeah, and Charlie, one more thing after that. Me and Charlie, all this season, we've been talking about those SEC teams that are kind of weird. The Ole Miss team, Mississippi State. Every week you have no idea what's going to happen, which team is going to show up, and Ole Miss is one of those teams. Steven, who you got?
Here's my question, because to me it looks like the pieces are falling exactly like they did last year, where they got snubbed out of the SEC championship in the last week of the year. And this time they went to the Peach Bowl last year. against a Big 12 team. They were easily favored. They got blown out by TCU. Is it lining up like last year? And also remember, because Robert Condici, he's suspended for this game. Mm-hmm. You have to think, because this is also Chad Kelly's last game. Could it also be the last game for Laquan Treadwell?
I'd have to say yes, Steven.
I still think Oklahoma State should easily beat Ole Miss.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at Ole Miss, can Hugh Freeze win a big game like this? This is the bowl game he has to show up in. I'm not saying he's going to be on the hot seat if he loses this game, but this is a big game for the Rebels and Hugh Freeze. All right, going pretty quick here. We've got the Outback Bowl. Number 13 Northwestern taking on number 23 Tennessee. They play at 11 o'clock on ESPN2. A morning kickoff. Not sure how many Tennessee fans are happy about that, but Northwestern, we all know it. They play really good defense, and they had little production on offense. That's why this game appears to be such a good matchup for the Vols. Northwestern's defense, though, despite giving up only 16 points per game, is probably going to have its hands full with Josh Dobbs and Jalen Hurd. The question I have, and I've been wondering for ever since we realized that Tennessee's playing Northwestern, is can they just hold up? Can they survive? Can they win this battle against the Vols? Donnelly, I'm going to start with you on this one.
Yeah, there's been a lot of close calls this year, and unfortunately, most of them didn't fall in the hands of the Volunteers. I think this game they're going to have it.
Yeah, I'm not picking against my Vols. They won 4 in a row. They're hot right now. I think the pieces are falling. He said it for the Sugar Bowl. I'm going to say for the Outback Bowl. We played Iowa last year, and I think Northwestern, they're kind of like Iowa was last year, a really good defensive team that wanted to hold you, and Tennessee put up 40, 45 on them. So that's my opinion there.
These are our two UT guys over here, the biggest UT fans over here. So I want to ask you guys a question, Steven. I know you want to voice your opinion on this game, but I want to ask you a quick question. How different is Iowa last year and Northwestern this year? That's a really hard question. I've been trying to wonder it, but obviously Northwestern is ranked. They're number 13 team in the country, but do they have enough to prove that? And how different is Iowa and Northwestern comparative to the 2 years?
Well, you have to remember, Iowa was playing 2 quarterbacks for the entire game last year. So they were not able to find any consistency until the last 5 minutes when they got the cupcake points. But I still think Northwestern, they're a great team, great defense, but offensively they're not there. They're really not. I think Tennessee should easily take care of business.
Got to say, good coach there at Northwestern.
He's a great coach.
Fitzgerald.
I just don't think Thorson is a good enough quarterback against a flying around Vols defense, SEC speed versus the Big Ten power.
That's true. That's always the matchup to watch when it's SEC and Big 12. So that's it for the Outback Bowl. Can't wait to watch that one off also. Now the Tax Slayer Bowl. We have Georgia and Penn State. James Franklin taking on the SEC team. Every time I see Penn State, I quiver. At 11 a.m. on ESPN. With a win over Penn State, Georgia can get to double-digit wins for the 4th time in the last 5 years. Obviously, we all know Georgia recently firing their head coach Mark Richt and Penn State firing their offensive coordinator. So the offenses for these two teams might look a little different because, Mark Richt sort of controlled that offense at Georgia. Penn State firing their offensive coordinator. Hackenberg's getting killed, pretty much every game. So as I look at this game, I was telling Steven this, James Franklin and how he fares against SEC teams. He knows how to play against SEC teams, and I think that's an advantage for him in the Big Ten. In this one, I think it's going to be sort of a low-scoring game because these offenses are struggling. I think it's going to be some type of a 17-14 score. What do you think, Charlie?
Yeah, it's going to be a dogfight. Both offenses really aren't there this year. Hackenberg, he's a good-looking quarterback, but he doesn't really have an offense behind him. And Georgia, they've gone QB after QB this year. Their running back, Nick Chubb, the Heisman frontrunner, you could say at the beginning of the year, got hurt against Tennessee. But I do think Penn State will win, but I think it'll be a close one.
Is Georgia going to show up after they fired Mark Richt? That's the question here. I personally think that they will. Sonny Michel will get the job done. Georgia wins.
I think Kirby Smart brought a lot of enthusiasm. He hasn't been with the team this season, but I can just feel it. They're ready. And they're ready to come out firing. But Penn State, they've just got Carl Nassib. They're just going to run around and just destroy the Georgia offense. I think Penn State's going to win in a close call.
Yeah, Penn State, they're one of those teams where they their quarterback's kind of out of the equation because he hasn't done much for them at all this year, and he's getting sacked, throwing interceptions. So see a lot of running the ball, I think, from both these teams. Obviously with Shoney Michel. So Charlie said it. It's going to be a dogfight. So we got to kind of go quickly here with these last couple bowls. We have the Buffalo Wild Wings Citrus Bowl, not the most attractive matchup in terms of, I guess, talent and offensive firepower. It's between number 14 Michigan and number 19 Florida. They kick off at noon on ABC on New Year's Day. Florida has proven down the stretch that it isn't really good, just flat out. The Gators looked like college football playoff contenders up until November, pretty much. To close out the season, the Gators lost decisively to Florida State and Alabama. Honestly, Steven, I think Michigan has a better coach, and I think they're gonna get it done in Orlando.
The last time Florida's offense showed up was against Ole Miss, because Florida has no offense whatsoever. That's why Michigan wins this game.
Chuck.
Yeah, I really can't see how Florida would win this game. Their defense is really good, and don't forget they played really good defense against Alabama until they got tired out because their offense went 3 and out every time. There's no way I can see Florida winning unless they can score 14 points on 2 trick plays and a pick 6.
Gators or Big Blue, Donnelly?
Big Blue, the Gators have really not done well. All their wins has what my granddad calls smoke and mirrors. They're not there. So Michigan's going to have an easy one today.
Yep, and moving on here quickly, we got the Texas Bowl. Texas Tech taking on number 20 LSU. LSU, obviously, they're 8-3 because their game was postponed, I think, the second week of the season because of all that. Was it the rain? Lightning. So December 29th, that's when they play at 8 o'clock on ESPN. Les Miles' team, they can get to 9 wins with a victory over the Red Raiders. Guys, I think another 2-word equation here. Leonard Fournette. Not much else to say in that one.
Leonard Fournette, LSU rolls.
Yeah, I don't think Texas Tech has a good enough defense to stop Fournette. I think he'll get another one of his 250-yard games on 35 carries. LSU wins.
Can Kingsbury compete?
I think Texas Tech's going to win. LSU and Fournette, he hasn't done well down the stretch, and he's just ever since the Syracuse game, it's just gone downhill with losing the tight end on the front line. So I think Texas Tech's going to win, but it's going to be a close one.
Donnelly, little Kingsbury lover there. I like it. Now we have the Belk Bowl. NC State taking on Mississippi State. The Bulldogs of Mississippi State looking for their 9th win of the year. They play December the 30th, 2:30. NC State quarterback Jacoby Brissett, obviously the guy to look for in this one. But we can't talk about Mississippi State without mentioning Dak Prescott. Mississippi State's quarterback efficiency is no question. Guys, I see this one being a competitive game because, these two teams, they're pretty comparative in styles. So I think Mississippi State's they're going to run the ball a lot, and then I think they'll pass the ball a lot late in the game and get this win over the Wolfpack.
Yeah, when you have two teams like this that you think are pretty even, you just look at the quarterback position. Dak Prescott, he's going to be one of the SEC's all-time greats. He's kind of like a Tim Tebow, a lot of rushing touchdowns as well as passing. And Jacoby Brissett, while he's good, he's not Dak Prescott. I have the Bulldogs winning in this one.
Mississippi State will not lose this game. Dak Prescott's last game in a Bulldog uniform, they won't lose.
Another close one in my opinion, but it's in Charlotte, so that's going to be practically a home game for NC State. They've played in that arena, Bank of America Stadium, quite a lot during the last couple of years, so I think NC State's going to win it.
Yeah, guys, I just want you to say who you think to win in these last few games. Music City Bowl, Donnelly, Louisville, and Texas A&M here in Nashville, December 30th, 6 o'clock.
Louisville. A&M has no quarterback.
I agree. Louisville. Hubank or whatever.
Jake Hubenek.
Yeah, Hubenek.
Is that right?
Louisville wins.
Louisville, they're riding high on that comeback win at Kentucky.
And then we have the Liberty Bowl down in Memphis, January the 2nd, 2:30 on ESPN. Arkansas and Kansas State. Guys, I've got Arkansas winning this one, but I think Kansas State's going to find a way to compete because they obviously don't have a lot of firepower. But I think Arkansas, they're one of those teams. I think they always sort of struggle in bowl games. Donnelly, what about you?
Arkansas looks really solid the last ending of the season, so Arkansas is going to have this one.
Charlie?
Yeah, Arkansas. They're coming out of the regular season on a high note, and Kansas State they don't have the firepower like the big hogs of Arkansas.
Remember, this is Brandon Allen's last game as well, so Arkansas will win.
All right, one more game to get to here. Birmingham Bowl, Memphis versus Auburn. Memphis getting matched up with an a mediocre, I guess, at best Auburn team. Auburn 6-6. They barely got into a bowl game, and they're playing the 9-3 Memphis Tigers. The Birmingham Bowl isn't exactly the most attractive destination if you're an SEC team. We saw that with the Commodores when they finished 8-4. Still aggravates me, but yeah, Donnelly, I would give the edge to Memphis in this one.
I don't. I think Memphis has lost their coach, and it's just gone downhill. They're right there. I think the highest they got was like number 9 in the nation. Ever since then, they haven't recovered.
Yeah, I can't imagine what it's like for a team to lose a coach. Fuente was a really good coach. I think Paxton Lynch will have a good game, but I think Auburn will just be able to dissect that Memphis defense, and they'll be able to score enough points to win.
Remember when we were talking about Jeremy Johnson possibly being a Heisman contender?
Yeah. Me and Charlie were talking a lot about that.
Auburn's had a lot of QB issues. I'm still going to take Memphis.
All right, guys. So Memphis and Auburn. I've got Memphis in that one. Donnelly has Auburn. 2 of these over here have Memphis. So that's it. Coming up next, we're going to be joined by Chris Lowe. He's a college football columnist and editor for ESPN.com. Cannot wait to talk with Chris. We're having fun, folks. Segment number 4 coming up here on the College Football Kickoff Show Bowl Game Preview Special. Welcome back into the program. You're listening and watching to the College Football Kickoff Show Bowl Game Preview Special Show. Thank you so much for joining us. And we just have confirmation that Robert Kimdichie, Ole Miss defensive end, who is actually suspended for his bowl game participation, he has declared for the draft. So that's one headline to get to there. So that after his one-story fall at the hotel, that's what's going on with Robert Kimdichie. Right now, we're happy to be joined by ESPN.com college football columnist Chris Lowe. Chris, how you doing this morning? Merry Christmas.
Same to you guys. Merry Christmas to you and all your listeners. It's good to be with you guys.
Yeah, Chris, I want to start things off in the SEC, obviously. First, I want to get your take on Alabama running back Derrick Henry winning the Heisman Trophy. And say if you were to take out Derrick Henry out of that offense, I know the easy thing to say is, wow, they would be nothing. But, they still have some talent on that team. Really and truly, how much of an impact does Alabama running back Derrick Henry have on this Alabama offense?
To me, he was their offense, and that's the reason I voted him number one on my ballot for the Heisman Trophy. It was a hard decision. I went back and forth between Derrick and Deshaun Watson and Clemson. Both those guys had major impacts on their team, and you're exactly right. If you take either one of those guys off their team, they're not really nearly as good. But the way Alabama leaned on Henry down the stretch, he really just sort of willed them offensively in some games, carried the football 46 to 48 times. I know some people say, well, the reason he had so many big numbers is he carried the ball so much. But here's my question. Here's how I would counter that. How many people are capable in the SEC of carrying the football 46 and 48 times late in the season the way he did? The guy is just he's a machine. And I thought was the best player in the country this year who had as big an impact, if not a bigger impact on his team than anybody else in the country.
Yeah, Derrick Henry, he is an absolute workhorse. And when you look at that Heisman Trophy, you say to yourself, well, obviously Derrick Henry should have won the game. He's an SEC running back. He plays for Alabama. But people on the West Coast, their argument is Christian McCaffrey should have won it, He does everything for that Stanford team. But the thing is, I think overall there is sort of a little bit of a bias to an SEC running back on an Alabama type of team where he's going to win that trophy with those Heisman voters. So that's my take on it.
We're talking with college football columnist Chris Lowe. Chris, in the Sugar Bowl, we have Ole Miss versus Oklahoma State, two very good offenses. Do you think there'll be any defense in this game?
Well, Ole Miss just lost a big piece of its defense, and Robert Nkemdiche, and his older brother, Nkemdiche, who has been a big part of that defense as well. Missed the last two games of the season. He's not going to play in the Sugar Bowl either. So there's two guys that racked up some big plays, big numbers for the Rebels. So it's going to be you're going to see some people for Ole Miss in particular, some guys that maybe haven't played starting roles that are going to need to step up. I still think Ole Miss is good enough and has enough good players that they have a pretty good chance to win this game. I saw Oklahoma State twice this July. I saw them the last two games. I saw them against Baylor and Oklahoma. And the thing with the Cowboys is they throw the football really well. They get vertical. They can get the ball down the field. Two things they don't do very well, though, the main thing they don't do well is they don't run the football. And I think Ole Miss should be able to sort of load the line of scrimmage and really come after them if they can't run it at all, which for most of the season, that was sort of the Cowboys' bugaboo, is they had no running game.
Hey, Chris, a lot of people think that the Cotton Bowl could be a mismatch, but a lot of people think it would be even. Is there any other matchup with an SEC team that appears to be pretty even?
Other than the Cotton Bowl?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
I would say Michigan and Florida in the Citrus Bowl. I think that's a game that, if you look at it, Florida was still limited offensively down the stretch. But Florida is still low defensively, and I think because of that, they're going to be in that game. That's a game where I could see picking either one of those teams. But the rest of them, you're right. The rest of other than Michigan State and Alabama, you look at the SEC team and who they're playing, and you think they're going to win. I guarantee you those won't shake out that way. Bowl games, to me, are always so hard to pick here because you never know which team's there and really dialed into the game, which team's there just wants to have a good time, which team just wants to get it over. And there are guys that are looking ahead to their pro career and they're there sort of in body only. So that's the part for me that makes picking bowl games so difficult. We can all cite examples over the years of a matchup where we thought, boy, it looks really good for this SEC team, and then they go and they're just thoroughly outplayed. There always are going to be those types of games, and I'll bet there'll be a few of those this year involving SEC teams.
And Chris, you always see, like you said, we always do see a couple of those games. I remember quite a few last year. Looking again towards what happened at the Heisman, do you think Keenan Reynolds had enough to be put at least considered in the ballot?
saying that I think Keenan did what now? He had enough what?
Had enough of a career to be considered in the ballot.
Oh yeah. I had a chance to talk to Keenan actually right before the Army game. I'm going to do a piece on him that's going to run here the next week. I think as a career, if the Heisman was a career award, I would say Keenan would have been right there in the top 3 or 4. But it's supposed to be an award based purely on this season. Everybody has their own way they want to vote on it. But I think the way he represented, the Naval Academy, how important he was to that offense, and just how consistent he was over his 4-year career. I had hoped that he at least would be there in New York City. He did chance to be there in New York City, but when you look at the voting and the way there was such a big gap after the 3rd place guy and the 4th place guy, who was Baker Mayfield, I guess they decided they only wanted to bring the top 3 there because those are the only 3 that were really, factored most prominently in the voting. But I tell you what, as a career, it sure would have been nice to see him there in New York City.
Chris, one more question here before we let you go. I got to touch on the Tennessee Vols in Knoxville. A lot of fans getting excited for that bowl game against Northwestern in the Outback Bowl. So as I look at this one, Chris, as a lot of people look at this one, they look at the offense of Northwestern, who, all season has been pretty abysmal. But a lot of people say this offense can run the ball against Tennessee. How do you think this Northwestern offense matches up against this high-flying SEC defense of Tennessee? And you got to think Butch Jones and that defense is going to want to bring a lot of pressure.
Well, yeah, they will. I agree. They will try to ask them to just try to take away their being able to run the football, because Northwestern has not been a team that's thrown it real well this year. And when they've won, they've been able to get ahead in games, possess the football, run it, commit to running it, not turn the football over, and that's been their blueprint. They're really good on defense. They're not going to give Tennessee anything easy on defense. They're just going to have to earn it. They don't bust plays. They don't make mistakes. They tackle well. I think Tennessee's going to win the game. I think Tennessee's better. They've got more talent. But I think the one thing that Tennessee needs to be careful about is not having one of these starts where they're just not in it. Maybe they turn the football over and spot Northwestern, say, a 10-0 lead. And then Northwestern is so good and so sound defensively that you spot them a double-digit lead like that, they're really going to make it hard on you. So I think Tennessee needs to get off to a good start, make Northwestern play from behind, and make Northwestern get on its comfort zone. If Tennessee can do that, then I think the Vols win and get that ninth win and really sort of pave the way for what should be the most anticipated Rocky Top next year in probably a decade.
Yeah, and you got to think that both of these coaches, Pat Fitzgerald and Butch Jones for the Vols, are going to have their players. They're going to have them focused. They're going to have them ready to play. And I think it should be a pretty entertaining Outback Bowl down in Tampa. All right, Chris, great stuff. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas to you and your family. Thanks so much for joining us.
Man, it's a pleasure, guys. Take care.
Yeah, you too. That's Chris Lowe. He's a college football writer for ESPN.com. Always good to have Chris Lowe on the show. Let's see here, guys. That's gonna do it here for segment number 4. Coming up here, we're gonna preview the other notable bowl games, including the Alamo Bowl, the Russell Athletic Bowl, and the Holiday Bowl. So the pretty notable bowl games coming up to preview. We'll have all that and much more coming up next on the College Football Kickoff Show Bowl Game Preview. to the College Football Bowl Game Preview Special. So glad you all are able to join us here. This is segment number 5. 10:05 is the time here in Nashville. We're going to start by touching on a couple of headlines here. Coming from 2 weeks ago, I guess, 4-star defensive back out of Hendersonville, Joanne Williams commits to Vanderbilt here on the campus. Well, it wasn't on the campus of Father Ryan, but he did. He transferred his junior year from Father Ryan to Hendersonville High School, and he verbally committed to Vanderbilt. It was between Vanderbilt and LSU. So, guys, I'm kind of forcing you guys to talk about this. This is really big news, in my opinion. Charlie, this is big news.
Yeah, what a commit for Vandy. They got a good 4-star player. He's had a great high school career, and I think he will be a first-round draft choice one day.
Steven?
Well, he'll definitely be able to get some playing time. Probably his freshman year. Probably not. Probably.
Guys,
I mean, it's going to depend. This is going to be the second big-time defensive back coming out of Father Ryan. Andrew Rector joining the team last year, had a huge impact. I believe he started a couple of games on the defensive side, but he was a really key factor in the special teams. Had one huge punt block. I think Rector had a more illustrious career here at Ryan. I'm still excited to see what Juwan will be able to do.
Yeah, I mean, guys, in all seriousness, he's a talented player, but he just didn't necessarily show up at Father Ryan while he was playing in the game. So hopefully something has changed with Juwan. Maybe few years will give him some development there at Vanderbilt. And then also there was some uncertainty surrounding Connor Cook and his shoulder. His throwing shoulder does feel, he said, quote, really good. He expects to be healthy when he lines up against Alabama at the Cotton Bowl Classic with a trip to the national championship game on the line. So Connor Cook is good to go, and we're good to go here for the notable bowl games here to preview. Steve Lassan told us he's looking forward to watching this Alamo Bowl, and I'm pretty sure all of us are too. Mm-hmm. It's between number 15 Oregon and number 11 TCU. Let's just say there's not going to be any defense at all in this one. Kicks off at 5:45, January the 2nd on ESPN. This Alamo Bowl should be the most intriguing bowl matchup outside of the playoff and the New Year's Eve 6 games. So Oregon and TCU, we all know they're two of the nation's highest scoring offenses. The Horned Frogs, their hopes of getting into the college football playoff was obviously derailed by injuries. So the question I have for you guys, will either defense find a way to slow down the skill players or dynamic quarterbacks in this one?
I'm all Horned Frog. Let's go Horned Frog. G-Pat's considered one, in my opinion, one of the best coaches in the entire nation. They're going to get the job done.
Yeah, and when you think of TCU, Gary Patterson, he used to pride himself on defense, but that's kind of flipped. These are two offensive powerhouses. It's going to be a really entertaining one to watch. But I think Oregon, Vernon Adams is playing really well right now. I think Oregon will be able to pull this one out. This
game's also being played in Dome, so there won't be the Baylor-TCU downpour where there's no points scored after midway through the second quarter. I trust Trevon Boykin over Vernon Adams, so I got TCU winning.
Yeah, guys, I mean, this is so much of a shootout that, in my opinion, I think this one's going to come down to whoever has the ball last. I mean, honestly, I really think that's how this one will end up. When you look at Trevon Boykin, he is. Am I right? He is expected to play for this one.
Yeah, he's
okay.
Good.
He's good to go for this one.
I believe he was cleared.
Yeah, so Boykin's good to go. So Boykin versus Vernon Adams. We'll be asking Clay Travis there, a little bit of a foreshadowing there for Steven. We have the Russell Athletic Bowl moving on here. Number 17 Baylor looking for their 10th win of the year. North Carolina already has their 10th win. They're 11-2. And they're ranked number 10 in the country. They play December the 29th, 4:30 on ESPN. Let's just say the scoreboard operator at the Citrus Bowl should have a busy night when Baylor takes on North Carolina. The Bears and Tar Heels are two of the top teams in the nation in terms of average yards per play. Injuries have certainly derailed Baylor's season. How many quarterbacks have they gone through? 5 already. So, they started with they had to go through Jarrett Stidham. They eventually had to go through their 4th string, who was a wide receiver, Lynx Hawthorne. So it's been kind of a fiasco there at Baylor. So I think North Carolina, they're going to be mad about what happened in the ACC championship game. That call, I mean, that was probably the worst call I've ever seen. So I think North Carolina is going to be really mad and fired up about this one. Donnelly, what do you think in the Russell Athletic Bowl?
Yeah, I'm going to go with North Carolina. Both the head coach Fedora and Gene Chiswick, the defense coordinator, played underneath my granddad at middle. Both have tremendous offensive skills and defensive skills, so I think they're going to get this one handily.
Steven?
When you're on your 4-string quarterback, there's no Marquise Williams, great quarterback. North Carolina wins.
Yeah, I agree. North Carolina, I think, will win. Elijah Hood, if you look at him, he's second in every category behind Dalvin Cook. He's really undervalued because of Dalvin Cook. I think he'll have a really good game. Marquise Williams, he can throw the ball all over the field. I got North Carolina.
All right, now moving on to preview the Holiday Bowl in San Diego. Number 25, USC, is 8-5. They lost to Stanford in the Pac-12 championship game as they play Wisconsin, who is 9-3. This game is December the 30th, 9:30 late kickoff time in San Diego on ESPN, home of the Chargers, who have not done anything this year. The Holiday Bowl is known for its high-scoring, entertaining bowl matchups most of the time. However, this year's version could feature more defense and a low-scoring game. When you look at the Trojans, Charlie, they're led by Cody Kessler and wide receiver Juju Smith-Schuster, and quite a name right there. But Charlie, the question I have for you, can the Badgers establish their style of play and sort of prevent the Trojans' explosive offense from getting on track?
It's going to be really hard. It's going to be really difficult or really fun to see how this one shapes up. It's a matchup of two rather unknown teams because they've just not had the years they wanted. But I think Cody Kessler and Smith-Schuster have a great combination. Adoree Jackson is a really good, speedy guy, and I think USC will be able to get it done against Wisconsin.
I always cheer for Notre Dame over USC, so I'm going to take Wisconsin this game.
Okay, Lee Corso. Donnelly?
Wisconsin's lost to three very strong teams. Bama at the first game of the season, Iowa, and then Northwestern. Northwestern, who was, I believe, 20th at the time. I think Wisconsin, they do better against the run defense, but I think they're going to flip it up and get this victory over USC.
Yeah, this one, it's going to be I have USC in this one, just the fact that they have too much. I think it's going to be a competitive game. I think USC has a little bit too much talent. I think Kessler is going to be able to throw the ball around in this one. Now we have the Hyundai Sun Bowl between Miami and Washington State. It's December the 26th, actually the day after Christmas. It kicks off at 1 o'clock. You can watch it on CBS. So Miami, they're not going to be coached by Mark Richt in the bowl game, unfortunately, but they're still under the direction of interim head coach Larry Scott. But I guess it's safe to assume that new head coach Mark Richt will be keeping a close watch on this one just to sort of, see how his guys are doing and keep up with things like that. But Wazoo quarterback Luke Falk, he's expected to play after missing the season finale against Washington due to a concussion. So Miami, Washington State. Charlie, who do you have in this one?
I'm going to go with Washington State. I really like them. They're a high-scoring team, just like most Pac-12 teams. And I just think Miami, they're not in a good direction right now. It's hard to play with an interim head coach. I like Luke Falk and the Cougars in this one.
Steven?
I got Washington State. Miami's been all over the map this year.
Speaking of the map, Washington State is going to throw it all over the map. They're going to average just almost 400 yards a game and passing, so they're going to win this one.
Yeah, when you look at Washington State, they're a team that has, a secretly, deceptive high-powered offense. Nobody really talks about them, but I think they're going to surprise Miami in this one. And as we all think around here, I think we all think they're going to get it done. So one more game to preview here, and it's a big one. We're going to talk a lot about this one, guys. It's the Military Bowl. Navy taking on Pittsburgh, December the 28th, 1:30 on ESPN. Navy is coming off a rivalry win over Army last weekend. This matchup against Pittsburgh is an opportunity to set a school record in the most victories in a season for Navy, and this will be a huge accomplishment for the midshipmen. Of course, stopping Navy quarterback Keenan Reynolds is easier said than done. But Pitt is a team they're not a cupcake. They're not a team that you can just slug off your shoulders like that if you're Navy. Pittsburgh's offense, they're not necessarily explosive, but they have a good receiver, Tyler Boyd, and running back Kadri Olesen. That'll be a tough matchup for the midshipmen, but I think Keenan Reynolds is going to pull away in the end and have some memories for his last game here at Navy. This is special, Donnelly.
Yeah, it's really hard to judge that triple option team. So we're going to have to see what they're going to be able to do, but I think Navy's going to end up getting this one.
Charlie, what about you?
Yeah, I agree. I think Keenan Reynolds, he's a really good quarterback. Some people think he got snubbed out of the
Charlie?
He got snubbed out of the Heisman. He got stubbed out of the Heisman Trophy. He's had 25 scores this year, and they run a great offense for him. I got the midshipman in this one.
I mean, Keaton Reynolds, obviously, or at least everyone in this room, everyone thinks he should have been in New York this year. When you're the leading quarterback with the most rushing touchdowns ever for a quarterback, how can you not? Also, my grandfather was in the Navy, so going with Navy.
Got to ask the question: has anyone been to the Army-Navy game, Army-Navy Classic?
I have not.
Nope.
We would all love to attend that one. It's one that everyone should attend.
Remember, Navy's playing this game on their home field.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's a really good point there. So, you got to think they'll bring their fans and be fired up for Keenan Reynolds. All right. That does it here for segment number 6. Coming up, for segment number 6, for segment number 5, coming up we'll be joined by Clay Travis. All that and much more coming up next on the College Football Kickoff Show. Welcome back into the program. You're listening to the College Football Kickoff Show Bowl Game Preview Special, and we are happy now to be joined by Clay Travis. He's a college football analyst for Fox Sports 1. Clay, Merry Christmas to you and your family. How you doing this morning? Clay, I want to start things off here with Derrick Henry. We've asked a lot of people about this. We asked Chris Lowe about this, but what's your opinion about him winning the Heisman and sort of the direction that the Heisman trustees decided to go, because a lot of people thought Christian McCaffrey deserved to win it, but he was on the West Coast and not many people had a chance to watch Christian McCaffrey. So do you think Derrick Henry was deserving of that Heisman Trophy?
Stanford plays a lot of late-night games, I know, because I spend a lot of time on the West Coast, and I watched those games, and he was an electric, exciting, exhilarating player to see. But the challenge is that not a lot of people see those. And in addition to the fact that those games start late, they move right into Sunday morning. So by the time most people wake up on the East Coast, the storyline has already moved from whatever happened in college football to the NFL.
All right, Clay, we've asked a lot of our guests this as well. Here in the fans up at Knoxville are getting really excited about their bowl game, the Outback Bowl. How do you think Butch Jones and the Vols are going into this one? How do you think they approach it? Because Northwestern, the Vols fans, they shouldn't be taking this team lightly. They have a very good head coach. So how do you think Butch Jones and the Vols approach this one?
Well, I think it's much like last season, where a win in a bowl game can be a catapult into a good start to the 2016 season. And obviously they took it to Iowa and came out and had a very electric start to the season. They couldn't win the tight games they played against Oklahoma and Florida. But I think they took the momentum that they got from the bowl game into the season. Now, of course, the flip side could be Iowa got dominated by Tennessee and then came out and had their best year ever under Kirk Ferentz. So I think that really the story is going to be can Tennessee get out and run some against this Northwestern defense, because they played such strong opponents all year, and they kind of try to control the pace of the game. And Tennessee, at times, has been able to, down the stretch of the season, really kind of put together some offensive ingenuity and some firepower. Other times, they kind of gotten bogged down in the weeds and played really tight games. So it would be huge. I think Tennessee is going to be a top 15 team regardless. But if they could come out and dominate a 10-win team in Northwestern in the January 1st bowl game, then I think it would go a long way towards validating the performance
talking with Clay Travis. He's a college football analyst for Fox Sports. TCU plays Oregon in the Alamo Bowl. This is a really intriguing matchup for me. How well do these teams match up, in your opinion?
Sorry, I missed the matchup.
TCU Oregon.
Which bowl? Oh, well, I mean, look, TCU had so many injuries down the stretch. It seemed like both Baylor and TCU really kind of fell apart at the quarterback position due to injury. But TCU couldn't quite get over the hump against Oklahoma, but they won that wild game against Baylor, which kind of gave a stamp of approval on their season. And Oregon, when Vernon Adams was healthy, was an offense unlike really any other in college football almost this season. So if both those guys are going to be healthy, I think this is going to be maybe the most exciting bowl game of the year. Lots of points. I think whoever wins will have to score 45, maybe more. I think you look at what's going to happen at the quarterback position. Like I said, Vernon Adams was just fantastic down the stretch. And there's my 1-year-old. He's obviously excited about this game as well. And Trevon Boykin was maybe the most electric player in college football when he was healthy. So you combine those two guys, I just can't wait to see what's going to happen.
In the Russell Athletic Bowl, North Carolina plays Baylor. Who do you have in this one?
I have no idea because Baylor's got so many injuries. Coleman's not going to play at wide receiver. He was dominant this year. I'm curious to see how well Chris Johnson's going to be at quarterback. Is he healthy? Baylor being on their third-string quarterback. And then UNC, it's hard to have a good read on them because they haven't played very many good teams all year. Baylor has been challenged. North Carolina has not. I probably would take Baylor, but I'm not that comfortable with picking there, obviously, with all the injuries.
Clay, is your 1-year-old a Baylor fan?
Yeah, I think that Art Briles and his job he's done at Baylor is second to none, really, in college football. And I think there's a lot of people at Texas who wish they'd gone ahead and hired him instead of Charlie Strong. And if they had, I think there would have been a substantial evolution in that program further along than we've seen so far.
Again, we're here with Clay Travis, Fox Sports 1 analyst. Clay, who do you think had the biggest coaching move this season so far?
Well, I think the ACC did a really good job in terms of adding a lot of depth of coaching talent to their conference, whether it was a guy who I think was probably the best hire of the season, Justin Fuente at Virginia Tech, whether it was Mark Richt down at Miami, Virginia getting Bronco Mendenhall. I think every ACC school substantially improved its overall standing with the coaches that they hired. I think you cannot necessarily say the same thing about, for instance, the SEC, where I think the SEC East has got the weakest collection of coaches that it's ever had in the history of the division. Butch Jones and Mark Stoops have seniority in that division. Neither one has necessarily proven that they're the guy long range. Derrick Mason at Vanderbilt has not been very impressive. As you break it down, Jim McElwain had a lot of breaks this year. I think they'll revert back to 7-5 type season next year for Florida. I think they were more of a 6-6 type team that got lucky this year, especially after the Will Grier suspension. I'm not sold on Kirby Smart yet at Georgia, and Will Muschamp obviously has already failed once in the division. I'm just not sold in general in this. I think this is the weakest coaching roster that any SEC division has ever had, and certainly the SEC East 1-7 has the least proven head coaches ever.
Going along back with the Will Muschamp, were you surprised that South Carolina went ahead and hired him?
Yes, I was. Not because I think Will Muschamp's a bad coach, just because I'm surprised that it took this short of time for him to come back and be a head coaching candidate once more. Especially because on the offensive side of the ball, he was just so awful. I don't think South Carolina has a lot of offensive talent right now. I understand he's gone and hired Kurt Roper, and his confidence they're going to be able to get an improved offensive performance there. But I just look at his overall record at Florida of 28-21, and they were just so painful to watch so many different years. It's hard to believe to me that he's already gotten a new job.
Clay, one more question here for you. The SEC, I've sort of realized this. We've been talking about headlines all throughout the show. You look at Robert Kimdichie with his actions, Will Grier being suspended twice this past season, and now he leaves Florida. You look at the A&M situation. Kyle Allen and Kyler Murray both transferring. Is the SEC starting to fall apart, Clay, or are they or this in the next couple of years, are they going to have a chance to sort of revive it? Because in my opinion, it's not looking good, and it's definitely not looking good in College Station right now.
Well, I think there's a lot of unproven quarterbacks in the SEC, and I think there probably has been an embarrassment of riches at the quarterback position over the past really 20 years. 11 of the 14 SEC schools have had a first-round quarterback drafted since 1995, which was the year, crazily enough, the last time that the Big Ten had a first-round quarterback drafted, and that was Kerry Collins out of Penn State. So you look at the returning quarterbacks coming back for next season. Josh Dobbs, somewhat proven at Tennessee, at least has played a ton. And then you look around the conference and you say, okay, Chad Kelly at Ole Miss, maybe Brandon Harris at LSU, but I don't think there's a lot of faith in him. Brandon Allen's graduating. I mean, he wasn't necessarily unbelievable at Arkansas, but you've got Patrick Tolles transferring out at Kentucky. Some heralded true freshmen coming in, Jacob Eason among them, the five-star quarterback who's a midterm enrollee at Georgia. But I think the quarterback talent's just been down. And I don't know if it's cyclical or if this is a larger theme that maybe the SEC was fortunate over the past several years to have so many good quarterbacks. But I think that's where a lot of people are pointing to and saying the conference is down. I don't buy into the fact that other talent is down. I think, for instance, at a running back position, whether you talk about Leonard Fournette, Derrick Henry, whoever you want to kind of point to, Jalen Hurd, this is as good of a running back talent as we've seen in a long time. But I definitely think that the quarterback play has declined precipitously.
Hey, Clay, that's a great answer. We've been talking a lot about the playoff and the fact that it was an easy decision for them. They got it right. Which of these two matchups to you has more appeal, just as a game in itself?
In terms of the people who are going to watch, I think it's Michigan State, Alabama, just because Big Ten versus SEC is an easy national calling card game. And I think that's why they put that in the evening primetime game. I think both are going to be excellent games. I like Oklahoma to beat Clemson, and I like Alabama to beat Michigan State pretty soundly. But I think in terms of, like I said, the overall national appeal, SEC versus Big Ten is tough to top.
All right, Clay, thank you so much for joining us. Happy holidays and Merry Christmas to you and your family.
Appreciate that. Thank you all for having me, and good luck with the show.
All right, thanks. That's Clay Travis. He's a college football analyst with Fox Sports 1. Always good to have Clay on the show. First time having him on the show, actually. So that was a great interview there. All right, coming up on the show, we're going to preview all the big games, all the big New Year's Eve, New Year's 6 bowl games. We'll have all that and much more coming up next for you. The last segment of the show, we're going to close things up, wrap things up. Coming up next on the College Football Kickoff Show Bowl Game Preview Edition. Welcome back into the program. This is the College Football Kickoff Show Bowl Game Preview Special. So glad you're able to join us here on a wonderful Sunday morning in Nashville. This is the segment where we wrap things up here, close the shop. We're going to start things off by previewing the New Year's 6 bowl games, the ones everyone is extremely eager to watch. And we'll start with the Orange Bowl in Miami Gardens, Florida. It's between number 1 Clemson and number 4 Oklahoma. Clemson's undefeated. Oklahoma is 11-1. This game is being played December 31st, 3 o'clock on ESPN. This is a rematch of last year's Russell Athletic Bowl, but the stakes are significantly higher for Clemson and Oklahoma in this year's Orange Bowl. The Tigers are the nation's lone unbeaten team, and they finished the regular season as the College Football Playoff Committee's number 1 seed. So they're arguably the best team in the country. The Tigers, they're loaded with speed and talent at receiver. But, guys, I go back to this. Quarterback for the Oklahoma, Baker Mayfield, he has risen to the occasion all season. He played extremely well to win that comeback victory over the Tennessee Vols. So he really showed what he could do in that one. And he's been doing it all year long. So, but the question is for this game, guys, can Deshaun Watson or Baker Mayfield simply carry their team into the national championship, or will the defenses have to make a play along the road?
You know, I'm a little biased on this decision. Being a student at Coastal Carolina, we grow to not like the Clemson Tigers. But Clemson, I'll give them props. They've done a very good job this season. But to me, they're not a 4-star team, 4 or 5-star team. They haven't done what I think they should have done. In all of the games they won, I think they should have won by a lot more points. So I think advantage to Oklahoma and Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, I'm going with Clemson in this one. I really like them. I think they're going to be mad. They aren't really getting the attention they deserve being the number 1 team. You know, everybody's talking about Alabama and Derrick Henry, and I'm not going to root for Oklahoma. I just think they're a classless team, and so I got Clemson, and I actually have them winning it all.
For me, this is a repeat of the ACC from last year, where Florida State went undefeated. They went in and got demolished by Oregon. But Oklahoma, they have, and really a big 3 in Baker Mayfield, Sterling Shepard, and Aaron Stryker on defense. And for that reason, I'm going with Oklahoma.
I cannot agree with you more on that one, Stephen. So now moving on, the one we're going to be talking about in depth is the Battle Frog Fiesta Bowl. Number 8, Notre Dame, taking on number 7, Ohio State. They played New Year's Day, and sort of an awkward kickoff. A lot of people wish this one was a night game, but it's a noon kickoff around lunchtime, so at your lunch break, be sure to tune into this one. It's on ESPN. The Fighting Irish and the Buckeyes are set to do battle in Glendale, Arizona. It's their first meeting since back in 2006. Notre Dame was forced to overcome a handful of key injuries this season. They lost their starting quarterback, two starting running backs, so they're playing with their third-string running back right now. They lost their starting tight end, starting defensive tackle. I can go on and on. The matchup of Deshaun Kaiser, C.J. Prosise, and receiver Will Fuller against Ohio State's defense is the one to watch, and I think it's one of the must-see bowl matchups of the bowl season. So the question is that I have in this one, will the extra time to practice help Coach Urban Meyer find some of the right answers for his offense? And he certainly has the talent to do so with his quarterbacks and running back Ezekiel Elliott. Steven, I'm going to start with you on this one. You got the Buckeyes or the Fighting Irish?
It's going to be an interesting one down in the Big Toaster in Glendale. Here's the question. What Ohio State team's going to show up? Because you look, Cardale Jones, Ezekiel, and Joe Buss, they're looking to May. They're looking for the draft. So will they show up? I agree. Notre Dame is banged up. But Ja'Sean Smith is going to be a big key in this game. I have Notre Dame winning this game.
Yeah, Jalen Smith, he's really talented on defense. Notre Dame, they can hold up on defense too.
Mm-hmm.
They're not a slouch on defense, Charlie.
Yeah, I think it's going to come down to Notre Dame's offense. They struggled on defense. They let Stanford drive right down the field on that final play of the game, on that final drive of the game. Their defense was not impressive. I think Ohio State's going to win rather easily. I don't think this is a good matchup for Notre Dame at all. Unfortunately for the Fighting Irish, I have Ohio State.
Notre Dame won't be able to defend the read option they have with Zeke Elliott and Barrett.
Yeah,
easy as that.
Easy as that. Well, I'd have to disagree with some of you guys because I think Notre Dame, I think they're going to show up in this one because Ohio State, when you look at them traditionally, sort of late in the season, they kind of start to fizzle away. So that's my take on things. I'm not sure. I think it's going to be a competitive game. I'm talking about Notre Dame, but I do think Ohio State's gonna end up winning, and I just think it's gonna be too much for the Irish in this one. Now moving on to the Rose Bowl, the granddaddy of them all, Stanford taking on Iowa. This is a great matchup. I mean, these two teams are very similar in the way they play. It's on New Year's Day, 4 o'clock kickoff on ESPN. This will be the Cardinals' third trip to the Rose Bowl in 4 years, while the Hawkeyes are returning to Pasadena for the first time since 1991. So Stanford running back Christian McCaffrey leads the nation with an average of 270 all-purpose yards per game. But when you look at the Iowa Hawkeyes, Donnelly, they've been very stingy on defense this year, and they're not going to let anybody just run it down their throats. And it's going to be tough for Christian McCaffrey, I think.
And it is, but I still think Stanford's going to have a close one over the national native, C.J. Beathard.
C.J. Beathard, yeah, went to BGA.
This is going to be an interesting one because everyone was talking about Iowa. Oh, they haven't played anyone. And then the game everyone thought they were going to get blown out. They only lost on a 22-play drive, take it all the way down the field. I still think, because we were talking about how Derrick Henry and Leonard Fournette are two-word equations, I think this one could be a four-word because Christian McCaffrey and Kevin Hogan. Stanford wins this game.
Yeah, and there's two factors that play into this game for me. The first one is that Stanford, they know how to play in the Rose Bowl. They're in the Rose Bowl almost every year, so they know how to play in that stadium. And Iowa, one big game they lost, so that was their one really tough game, and they lost it. And those two factors lead me to believe Stanford's going to win this game.
Yeah, and so that you always obviously have the Rose Bowl. So the Rose Bowl, and then now you have the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl in Atlanta, Georgia. It's between Houston and number 9 Florida State. The Seminoles getting into a New Year's 6 bowl game. This is December the 31st, noon Eastern time on ESPN. The Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl kicks off the New Year's 6 slate for the second year in a row. New coach Tom Herman guided Houston to an American Athletic Conference title in his first season. Greg Ward Jr. He has a lot of mobility. It's a huge asset for. I mean, it's almost when I look at Greg Ward Jr., it's almost like putting a wide receiver out there and just letting him run around. But he has talent to throw the ball as well. So, and when you look at Jimbo Fisher's Seminoles this year, they're a decent team, but they just weren't quite elite enough to get those big wins against a Clemson type of team in the clutch. So, I think Houston's rush defense has been stingy all season because they played Vanderbilt, but that's not much to say there. So Houston, I don't think they've played a team like Florida State this entire year. I don't think Houston can match up with Florida State at all. So I've got Florida State in this one. Dalvin Cook and the Seminoles big, but I think Greg Ward Jr. is going to rack it up. Donnelly?
Yeah, I'm actually going to go the opposite way. I think Ward reminds me a lot of Deshaun Watson in the fact that he's able to be mobile as well, also throwing the ball. So I think it's going to result in the same type of situation.
Steven?
Houston on top.
I agree with that. Yeah. Houston going to be highly motivated in this game. Florida State, sort of like Miami, they've been a little all over the map. I got Houston winning.
I have Florida State in this one. I just don't think Houston has the firepower like Florida State does. Dalvin Cook and McGuire at quarterback. They're both really good players. Florida State in this one.
Guys, what happened to Everett Golson? Wasn't he supposed to start for the Seminoles this year? And it's kind of fizzled out.
He fell off the map
It didn't pan out there, unfortunately.
Did not work out there for the Seminoles. I mean, I don't know if it was whether Jimbo Fisher did not flat out like the kid or what was happening there with Everett Golson. So
I was wondering if Zaire might be doing the same thing. He might transfer out after seeing Kaiser play.
If he loses the quarterback.
A little bit of deja vu going on for Notre Dame. Yeah, that's a debate there because Zaire, I would think that there's no doubt you put Zaire in. I mean, DeShone Kizer proved he got a lot of good experience, but if you're Zaire, I think you stay. You had the injury, but you never know. I mean, that's a good little proposition there. So now on New Year's Day, one more game to preview here. The Sugar Bowl. We talked about this one earlier. Let's try to touch on it one more time. So Ole Miss has played in back-to-back New Year's 6 games. Guys, we talked about this one. Hugh Freeze is looking for a better result than last year's 42-3 loss against TCU. Charlie?
Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
Ole Miss is not going to show up.
Yeah,
they have not done well. It's going to be a 52-3.
Yeah, Steven, we talked about it, but what was your again?
Laquan Treadwell and Chad Kelly are looking to May as well. Oklahoma State will roll.
Yeah, Ole Miss. I talked about this a little bit earlier, but Ole Miss is a team where the question is, Steven's been talking about it. Will they show up? Will their team officially show up? So, guys, that's your set for the New Year's 6 bowl games. I want to ask you guys one more question. What's the most exciting thing? What bowl game do you think is going to be the most exciting? Who are some players, some coaches that you're really looking forward to watching and just can't wait to watch this bowl season?
I'm ready to see Brent Stott's skill. I think he's going to really show out this way, and I think he's going to really turn some eyes in the NFL.
Yeah, in the years to come, I tell you what, watch out for Brent Stockstill. Steven?
One game that we did not focus on at all is this is going to be an even matchup.
Your Sun Devils.
The Motel 6 Cactus Bowl, Arizona State versus West Virginia, playing 23 minutes away from Sun Devil Stadium in Chase Field. Todd Graham, Mike Bercovici, they've done a good job. They had a rough start, including the triple OT loss at home to Oregon. I think they get it done today.
Charlie, what are you looking forward to this bowl season?
Most intriguing matchup for me, the Russell Athletic Bowl, Baylor versus North Carolina. I'm just going to sit back and watch that one. There's going to be a lot of firepower on that one, and maybe I'll get a triple overtime game. That would be fun.
All right, guys, we're going to go from left to right here. Steven, your college football playoff predictions.
I got Oklahoma beating Clemson. I got Alabama beating Michigan State. And then this one, it's a tough one because will it be a repeat of the Sugar Bowl 2 years ago? I'm not so sure, but I am going to go with Oklahoma because to me, they've proven it, and they've proven it against teams that are really good really good running teams.
Charlie?
I got Clemson. I like Deshaun Watson. I like Gallman, their running back. I think he's a good player, and I think that they're gonna be playing Alabama, and they're gonna come fired up, and I think they'll get their national championship.
Interesting pick there, Charlie. I in fact do not believe in the Tigers at all. I think they're gonna pull a Clemsoning here. So I have Oklahoma beating Clemson, and I have Alabama beating Michigan State. But I think both games, I talked about it earlier, I think Alabama-Michigan State, low-scoring game. Oklahoma-Clemson, high-scoring game. But Oklahoma gets it done with Baker Mayfield. So I think it's going to be a talent-filled national championship game between Alabama and Oklahoma. My heart says to go with Oklahoma, but I'm going with the Tides. Donnelly?
I'm kind of in the same boat. I don't believe in the Clemson. I don't believe in Dabo Swinney and what he's doing there. It's just not working. In my opinion, just not working
They're
out.
not going to hit the dab after the game.
No, they're not. So I've got Oklahoma winning. I think after the Alabama-Michigan State game is going to come down to special teams. Whoever has the better special teams is going to end up winning that game. And I really think Michigan State might edge out. If Cook can start throwing the ball, they're going to catch those D-backs off. So I'm going to say Oklahoma-Michigan State in the finale, and Oklahoma's going to win it.
Yep, we're big Oklahoma lovers over here. We got a Clemson guy over here. So, guys, it was really fun. This is a great experience here. For the viewers of the film, thank you so much for joining us. And that just about does it here for the College Football Kickoff Show Bowl Game Preview. Happy holidays and Merry Christmas.